Hello and welcome to the Exide MasterClass Sportscars Special. And what better way to kick it off than with the automobile that has defined the term sports cars for the last half century, the Porsche.
And this is the Porsche 718. The Porsche 718 is the name given to the Boxster and Cayman models. The 718 name itself was actually a sports car that featured a 4-cylinder engine. And that's critical because these were the first Cayman and Boxsters to ever be fitted with a flat 4 engine as well. It sort of breaks with tradition when it comes to Porsche's smaller sports car, smaller than the 911. And let's not forget the Boxster and later the Cayman pretty much saved Porsche in the 90s when they were on the brink of bankruptcy. And what they actually did was a masterstroke in design. By placing the engine in the middle rather than the rear of, say, the 911, they were able to offer something slightly different with all the Porsche's know-how that they developed, honing that rear engine chassis, but just making that dynamicism just a little bit better, in my opinion. Actually, I think these cars, the 718 generation, really get that chassis tuning right. It's amazing how poised these cars feel at any speed. You can be driving around town and attacking roads like this, and you'll still feel an inherent connection with the car.
So with me I have race car driver, president of the official Porsche Club of Sri Lanka, and Porsche connoisseur Abeeth Dangalla to run through the technical aspects and features of this amazing machine. Welcome, Abeeth.
Thank you, Ishaq.
Alright, Abeeth, this has a 2-litre turbocharged engine that produces around 300 horsepower, and I know a couple of other JDM cars that have a similar kind of output. But driving it feels so different. I think that's got to do with the technological aspects of how Porsche built this car. Can you just run me by some of those?
Let's start with the engine. The engine is a highly developed 2-litre engine. Has special bow linings, special pistons, a very special fuel system, and also the turbocharger is designed to minimize lag, and even the computer is programmed to minimize lag. So from that point onwards, it feels less of a turbocharged engine than a conventional 2-litre turbo. Then from there on, it's the dual clutch gearbox, which is world renowned for Porsche, which has almost no time in changing. In 200 milliseconds, the gear change happens. So that alone makes a very big difference. Moving on from there to the suspension, it has variable dampers, which adjusts itself on the move based on the road conditions.
If I were to compare this car against a Subaru STI or a Evo, which has roughly about the same amount of horsepower, Abeeth, you know what I'd say? Those cars are a little more rougher, a little more crude because they come from the world of tight corners and hard acceleration. But this Porsche, the way it goes from corner to corner, it's as elegant as a Russian ballerina. Alright, Abeeth, I see your vehicle, also Porsche, parked up ahead.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop you off here so I can go and have a little bit more burn, and I'll catch you around later.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much for the information about the Porsche. It was fantastic.
Most welcome.
I can certainly think of worse ways to spend a morning.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have to say, one of the most amazing sports cars I have driven, built by one of the best sports car manufacturers in the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because when you think about Porsche, you naturally think about the 911, and that has sort of become a car that straddles the line between sports and supercar. But the 718 Cayman and Boxster really come into their own, especially in this kind of environment.
Yeah, I think more than the 911, these cars are so usable I mean, it's a car, it's a sports car because you can drive it every day, but when you want, it's got plenty of power on tap.
But now, while these two cars are probably the pinnacle of what you can find, arguably in Sri Lanka at the moment, but the beauty of this category of car is that there are so many different options at different price points. Now, Ishraq, this is the Abarth 124 Spider. It might not be as expensive or as technologically advanced as the Porsches over there, but it's still one of the ultimate driver's cars. Actually, I've never driven this one, but I've driven the MX-5, which this is based on, and its Fiat 124 cousin. So I'm really keen to find out exactly how this one performs on the road.
Yeah, I think this is the Abarth version, so you're going to find out that it's got a little extra goodies under the hood as well.
So what we have here is the Abarth 124 Spider. Now, Abarth is key in this equation because I've driven the Fiat 124 and I have to say it was a little bit underwhelming compared to, say, the Mazda MX-5. Both cars were based on the same platform, but they did feel very different in the way that they handled and the way that they delivered the power. Now, you could argue that because Mazda went down the naturally aspirated route with their engine, that it's a more distilled version of a sports car. And I think I'd agree with you. But from a day-to-day use point, I do prefer the turbo power. The fact is, the torque is much greater in this car than the 1.5 litre that's found in the Mazda. And also, it's accessible a lot earlier in the rev range. So yes, the 124 Spider is a proper sports car. In fact, some would argue that it's more pure than the 718s we were testing earlier. Because this doesn't have things like active suspension and dynamic engine mounts. Those sort of things really do help you enjoy the 718. But when you lack them, you're able to harness this car's power just a little bit more. The only thing is, if you're not really wanting to spend so much money on a sports car like Porsches, yes, you could go for this. But I have a feeling I can go even better, even cheaper, and still replicate the same kind of experience that I'm getting right now. You know what? I'm going to go back to Ishraq. I have a couple more cars in mind. Let's see what he says to them.
How was that, Sam?
Actually, it's a lot better than I thought. It's much improved over the Fiat 124, and to be honest, I even prefer it to the MX-5 that it's based upon.
Definitely. Looks fantastic, and I just can't wait to have a go in it.
Okay, yeah, I did promise you the keys.
Yeah, and I'm just itching.
Thing is, before I do that, I do think I can get cheaper, perhaps even more fun sports cars than this.
Sure?
Yeah, and I did say there was anything available for any budget. Why don't you take the car down to the track at Mirigama, and I'll meet you there with a couple more options.
Cool. I'll see you there.
Cool, see you there.
We're here at the Mirigama track in an Italian sports car with the engine in the front, the drive at the back. It's raining. This could be my Groundhog Day. A lot of people said that the Fiat 124 Spider Abarth is like a Japanese girl wearing a Prada dress, given the fact that the Miata and the Fiat were both built in the same factory. But the answer to that is no. It's a big no. This turbocharged engine has more power. It has a sports mode. It has a rear LSD. There's that iconic badge up front, the Abarth badge, which signifies its racing heritage, and this car has so much curb appeal. The chassis is so nimble, there's absolutely no understeer at all. It just turns in, and then the rear responds to the throttle absolutely beautifully. Unlike front wheel drive cars which tend to understeer, a rear wheel drive car that oversteers requires so much more concentration, so much more application. Sam, you were supposed to bring two affordable sports cars. What's this? You bought supermarket trolleys.
Well, back when they were allowed to be brought into the country, they were considered affordable sports cars. I mean, look at the Caterham. It was actually about half the price of that 124 Spider when it first came. And the S660 was even less.
Half the price and half the power, I'm sure.
pretty much exactly. This has 80 horsepower, yours has...
150, 170 because it's the Abarth edition.
Yep, exactly. So roughly half the power, but crucially half the weight as well. This is about 490 kilograms. Yours is 1,100.
All right, I get the Caterham. I mean, it's a sports car looking thing. It's been there for ages. But this, the baby Honda?
Oh yeah, it's Japan's finest if you ask me. Well, in terms of the K car class anyway. It's a Honda S660, it's got a 6-speed manual and the engine's in the back just where you want it in a nice little sports car like this.
I have an RC car at home, which is just about as big as this one.
Well, okay. I'm going to take the Caterham for a drive. What about you?
I don't think that's fair. I think we need to have a toss to see who gets to drive what.
Okay, do you have a coin?
As a matter of fact, I do.
Okay, great.
Okay. Heads or tails?
Heads.
Ah, crap.
Ha.
You win.
Ha. Let me show you exactly what this is about. So what do we have here? Well, it's a Caterham 7 160S. And I know what you're thinking, it looks like a classic car. But this car is from this century. In fact, it was only made about 5 years ago in 2016, from the factory in the UK, no less. The doors are pretty much optional. The steering isn't power assisted, and the brakes, well, they don't have a servo either. But what this means is proper back to basics driving. The steering and the car is so light at about 490 kilograms that you don't need that power assistance, and once the speed builds up, you have a much firmer, weightier steering wheel. Not having a servo on the brakes means that you can learn brake modulation just like a racing driver. Speaking of that, I spent a year racing formula cars, and I have to say, this is the closest thing that you'll get to a road-going single-seater formula car. To drive it properly, you have to learn the absolute basics of car control. You can't drive it without rev matching, without learning the heel and toe technique, without learning weight transfer and how it affects how you corner and traction and grip as you exit. It's just so involved, so in-depth. I really love it.
This is what is known in Japan as the K-car or light automobile. It is their smallest highway legal production car. It was introduced in 1949 with the sole purpose of easing congestion and reducing parking. Now, even though it is very small, since then, over the last 70 years, it has grown to be a global phenomenon. Now, a K-car has to conform to very strict measurements. It has to be 134 inches long, 58 inches wide, and 78 inches in height. And it also can't have an engine that is more than 660 cc's in capacity and more than 64 brake horsepower. Now, most K cars are just boxers with wheels, but sometimes a manufacturer will strive to do something outside the box, so to say. And this is one of those times. Welcome to the Honda S660. Honda's version of their mini sports car, the Honda NSX. Now, it's got all the right ingredients of a sports car. It's a two-door, two-seater, mid-engine rear-wheel drive layout. It's got a flat-bottom sporty steering wheel, a set of aluminium pedals, and the thing I like about this car the most is its manual gearbox, which is short and crisp. The steering response is quite fast, and the fact that this car, even though it's only 660 cc and 64 horsepower, has a teeny tiny turbo which helps it accelerate hard out of the corners. And because it's a manual gearbox and because it can rev all the way to 7,000 RPM, I can change a gear down, rev it all the way up, and change the gear up again. But if you take the roof off, which you can in this car and which we have right now, you can feel the wind blowing through your hair. Not a lot, because they've done quite well with the buffeting. And it delivers an experience that would make it seem faster than it is. And in the end, it has somewhat similar to a sports car effect then. As a cheap, affordable sports car, well, I'll have to say yes and no. Yes, because aesthetically, I think Honda have nailed it right on. It's absolutely fantastic to look at, absolutely fantastic sit-in. But really, in the end, gear to gear, around a corner, around a track, it just doesn't have enough power as I would like it to. It falls a bit flat on its face. It's a bit like eating a vegetarian burger. It fills you up, but there's no meat in it.
So, how was it?
Nice, Sam. A lot better than I thought it would be.
I told you so.
Right, what's next now, Sam? Do I get to drive that?
Okay, so my hypothesis is you can buy one of these plus a nice family car for the same price as the Fiat 124 Spider. Is it half the car though?
Okay, it may be half the car, but is it double the lap time?
Now that's a good point. And seeing as we're at a track, why don't we set some fast laps in each of these cars and see where they stack up to each other?
All right, sounds great. I think I'll go first in the 660 before I get into that one.
Take it away. 3, 2, 1, go. Well, things got a little bit wet towards the end of today's test. But Ishraq, how did I do in the Caterham?
Well, Sam, you did a 1 minute 24-second lap time in the Caterham. And how were my laps in the S660 and the Abarth?
Surprisingly, the Abarth did a 119.36, okay? The S660, a 122.
122, well, I must say, I'm surprised. And even though it's a little short on power, I think Honda have made this car handle really well.
Yep, they have. I mean, I really love all three of these cars, and I think they're, different strokes for different folks.
Of course, but one thing's for sure, a wet Medigama tractor day is perfect for these cars.
Absolutely, and rear-wheel drive cars at that.
Rear-wheel drive cars, exactly. Alright guys, that's it from this episode of the Exide MasterClass Sports Car Special. Join us next time for more excitement and thrills.
And if you like the kind of content you saw today, why don't you like, subscribe and comment? In fact, why don't you comment and tell us which one of these cars you would take home? Thanks for watching. Catch you again on the next one.